Welcome to another episode of the Good Viral Podcast. We have a special guest today, Kristian Hansen, who is the definition of a serial entrepreneur. He's the CEO of Slø Fashion and a former founder of 4 startups. Kristian is an adventurer and the visionary behind the world's first scalable Slø fashion system. Backed by over 900 investors, 600,000 social media followers, and a team of over 15 people, Kristian is currently building one of the fastest growing fashion startups in history. If you have an interest of the textile industry and the impact it has on the environment and in economics, you really want to listen to this episode, because Kristian and his team with Slø Jeans is really going to change things.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Viral Podcast. We are super excited to bring our new guest here today. Demian and I have been chatting a little bit back and forth about this guy and his movement, especially on TikTok. If you've been on TikTok and you're a woman and you like wearing jeans, you probably know about him. His name is Kristian, and he is doing something absolutely phenomenal. He is listening to the market. He is listening to the cries of women across the world, and men, of course, who are saying, hey, we want jeans with pockets. But it's not just about pockets. It's about sustainability. It's about doing things ethically. And it's about making fast fashion no longer a thing. And you're going to learn about fast fashion. You're going to learn about what is sustainability within fashion, especially in the jeans market. So everyone, please welcome Kristian. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it. So the first thing is just to give people an opportunity to sort of learn about you guys a little bit. So how would you describe the heart and the mission of your company, your organization? Yeah, absolutely. So we are attempting to create a company that is the antithesis of fast fashion. So our company is called Slø, purposefully done. Our tagline is not fast fashion. The idea is essentially to do everything differently. We're at the core of everything that we're doing is trying to create an ethical manufacturing cycle from the seed going in the ground to the jeans showing up, at your door. So honestly, it's a huge system. There's a lot to talk about, but that's really at the core of it is everything that we're trying to do is making sure that we're delivering the highest quality product that is ethically created and sustainably created, and most importantly, fits and works for the consumer.
For the listeners who don't really understand or know much about it, so what's the problem with fast fashion? What's that all about?
With the mass creation of anything, there are environmental issues, but unfortunately, the fashion industry is one of the most destructive environmental industries in the world in regards to environmental destruction. It attributes to about 11% of all of the world's carbon is coming from the fashion industry, whether that's the growth of cotton or the production of textiles or the production of clothing. In addition to just the destruction as a result of water usage, and a lot of these clothes are being made in developing nations that use coal power, and it's also an ethical consideration where you're using a lot of slave labor is being used, and that's not even a term of exaggeration. There are lots of companies that are creating clothes in manufacturing facilities where workers are not even being paid. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration in regards to sustainability, and the quote unquote fast fashion companies, they've been labeled fast because they produce collections incredibly quickly. Every time you go to the store, you're going to see a new collection. And the only way they're really able to do that is by using these manufacturing facilities that they're working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, at standards that we, in North America and Europe and a lot of the markets where there's a lot of control over the manufacturing, we do things a little bit differently in that regard.
And I think this is really important because not a lot of people think about the entire process of creating one piece of clothing. And then where does that clothing end up once the clothing item is done being used or destroyed? Usually we think about donation, but the majority actually end up in the landfill, whether that's from the homeowner or the clothing owner or from the organization that takes donations themselves. They just can't take that kind of volume. So the amount of textiles that just go into landfills itself is just astronomical. And so for those who are listening, go ahead and Google that, check it out. It's absolutely crazy. Also go to Kristian's website, sløjeans.co. He's got some pretty interesting stats on there, especially on the investment page. Really interesting. So Kristian, tell us a little bit about what happened. What sparked this movement and this idea of creating sustainable, specifically a jean line?
I had already been running a sustainable clothing company for a few years called Mountain Co. And so we were on our 3rd or 4th collection, and basically what happened was it was a complete accident. I went thrift shopping in Montreal. I really like thrifting. I think it's a great way to give clothes a second life. And I found this awesome pair of Calvin Klein jeans, and I was like, oh, sweet, I don't have a pair of those. $7. I bought them and I took them home. You don't really try things on at thrift shops. So I took it home, and the next day I put them on, and I was walking to the metro station, and I literally couldn't get my phone in the pockets. And I thought it was a mistake. I was like, oh, okay, there's like, it's, the pocket bag is just, and no matter what I could do, I couldn't get anything in there. And I finally got home and I was like, oh my God, these are women's jeans. That's why they don't have good pockets. And so I made a TikTok video about it, and I just said, hey, ladies of the world, where are your pockets? This is a crime against humanity. And it really resonated with people, and it ended up getting several million views. And then about 8 months later, I was sitting there at home around Christmas time thinking, okay, there's obviously this huge issue. It's really resonating with people. It's the content that's done the best for all of my social channels. I have a clothing manufacturing company. Why am I not putting all of these things together? So I just made a TikTok video, and I said, hey, ladies, I'm going to make you jeans that have all of these things that you're saying that you want. Now tell me what you actually want. Leave a comment, tell me what you want. And in 24 hours, we had about 45,000 people either DM, leave comments, go on our website and submit forms. And by the end of the week, we had over 100,000 new submissions of feedback for people saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. And that's what we've used to create this new movement.
I got to say, I was one of those commenters too.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
I've been following your journey on TikTok since the beginning. I told Damien, and pretty quickly once he started doing this, I was like, we gotta talk to this guy. This guy is going to be definitely a thing we want to support.
It's such a great story. It's like a happy accident, something that just you weren't really expecting, and then you get to use the sort of the power of, the true voice of the people, right? So it's a very organic way to create a whole new, in a way, a new business, sort of a new line or a new division for you, or whatever you want to call it. So it's an amazing story. I guess the sky's the limit if you continue to use those kind of channels. Just ask people, what is it you want, and just provide it for them, because I think, at Good Viral, what we're sure of is that the message that we're trying to get across is that there's just a lot of things in the world that really need to change, and the reality is most people want to change it. The difficulty is how do we do that, right? So at the heart of our organization, we say we believe that people can and want to do more, right? But how do we do that? So I think it's a beautiful story, because you're tapping into one of the ways that people can actually start to really make change in the world is through communication. Communicate directly with the companies. The companies listen directly to the people, and not only that, obviously we're talking about a small part of a much bigger possibility here, where we know that there's a lot of problems that are urgent that need to change, and we need to figure things out like pretty quickly, And so it's amazing that you're involved in an industry that, for me, Anastasia was sort of sharing this with me, and it was like I had no idea that fashion was even in the picture as a contributor to the problem, and yet, as you say, it's a huge contributor to the overall problem, and it's the consumer mentality, right? And
absolutely,
and the reality is everybody's going to continue to consume, but I think that most people, given the choice, would rather consume in a more intelligent way, in a way that's better for other people, for the planet, and so if we had that choice, and that's what you're looking to give us, is that choice, right? So
absolutely. And I love that you say that, because I've gotten into some pretty hefty arguments at sustainability conferences or talks, and I've given some Earth Day talks here, and people have really fought me on it. But I think consumerism is actually the world's most powerful tool for sustainability. And people say to me, what do you mean by that? How is that possible? Consumerism is what got us into this mess. The reality is, I strongly believe that you cannot convince people to consume less, but what we can convince people to do is consume products that are good for the planet, that have net positive benefits. So it's up to us as the companies to create solutions for consumers and say, hey, look, we're living in the craziest time of capitalism in history. People just buy and buy and buy and buy. But if every time they bought something, trees were planted and education was funded, and we were literally pulling carbon out of the atmosphere, the force that is now destructive becomes a net positive. And that's what we're basically trying to do, is say, look, every time you buy from us, we're going to donate, and we're going to make sure that, we're trying to build some schools right now for women's education in developing countries. So every time you buy from us, you're going to contribute to that project. Every time you buy from us, we're carbon neutral, if not carbon positive, and give that powerful underlying human psychological phenomenon that is not going anywhere, give it a positive spin, because fighting it it's like fighting a tsunami.
To attest to that, I think a lot of people have a hard time thinking, okay, how can I change the world through what I buy? And especially when a lot of options out there are not as affordable as, say, the fast fashion model or the fast product model, really. And
Absolutely.
For a great example, actually, one of our first interviews was with Christine Figener, who was the sea biologist for the sea turtle with the straw up its nose.
Yep.
And there was that video that went viral. So we interviewed her, and it was a great interview because it really showed that when you are aware of a problem, like plastics in the ocean getting up turtles' noses, it changes a lot of what the world decides to do next. And that even changed something as big as a huge corporation like Disney to change all of their straws from plastic to paper. Now you got to imagine Disney across the board, how many straws do they go through in a day? Just at one park, let alone their multiple parks. And so that does have a huge change in how people respond to products. So I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. And within that same model is that you're listening. So you're actually going to deliver a product that they want, not because it's not only is it because of what they want, but it also what is the ripple effect of all that? So what ripple
Absolutely.
effects are you seeing right now today? You're pretty early in the stage. I know I just saw your TikTok where you're in India checking out a bunch of, fabrics and stuff for the jeans. But what's the ripple effects that's going on at this stage with Slø Jeans?
The amazing part is, we're still in our infancy for sure. But what I'm already seeing on social media is I'm tagged in probably 20 or 30 different videos per week about fast fashion problems. People just tag me. And what that says to me is that, hey, I love it that people are putting two and two together. I get tagged in the video every day that's like, look at what this company is doing to destroy the planet. And people are like, hey, yeah, Kristian, you're going to want to see this. And then you're seeing people in the comments that are like, oh, cool, I didn't see this. And we've created, almost by accident, we've created this community of people who are now aware of these issues. And it started out as let's give women pockets. And it's just blossomed into this unbelievable movement of, okay, yeah, there are tons of issues. There are tons of issues to solve, including, body image issues that are being forced on, people by fast fashion companies and by fashion companies and magazines and media as a whole. And that got thrown into our plate. And I was like, oh my God, that wasn't even intentional, but yeah, okay, we're going to work on that. And so the ripple effect really has just been, it's almost been more of a layer effect. If anything, we started with base layer one that was, hey, these pockets suck, let's fix this. And then it became, hey, why is there no gender neutral clothing? Why is it everything male and everything female? The reality is that I've been in fashion for a while. It's really not that different to make a men's jean and a women's jean. It's next to zero difference. Why are we labeling them one way or another and leaving out a huge portion of people who don't identify either way, who are now self-conscious about having to go to one section or the other? Then the psychological element of, okay, consumerism and going to the sustainability effect. So honestly, I would say it's been more of a layer effect, but it's all been, amazingly positive, and it's only allowed us to further understand what the user, I keep saying user, sorry, I come from tech, but what the end consumer really wants. And ultimately, that's what we've been seeing so far in terms of a ripple effect.
This is kind of like a journey of pockets with purpose. I like it.
Precisely. Yeah.
Yeah. What you're making me think about in this, it's mind blowing. Really, is that what you're sort of uncovering is something very, very big. And what I mean by that is that if your company is forging the way in a lot of these, in the way that you're approaching this, or the way you're doing it, and the way you're interacting with people through social media, the impact that you're having. I mean, obviously, we know that it's not just about you and your company. We know that it's literally about, we're trying to do something that's important for the whole world. And so the big project, the big mission is how do you do things in such a way that you're setting an example that others can follow and that others can be inspired by? Because what we basically need is all the generations of companies that have come before us that have done things for certain reasons that have, not by will of any one person, obviously, but basically have got the world into sort of a mess. that we as a human race need to get our way out of, and as I said, people don't know how to do it. So, companies like yours and the way that you're having effect through social media, the way that people are communicating, it's not really it's not clear, I think, to most companies. It doesn't matter how much money they have, how many people they pay to do it. The reality is people just don't know how to make that shift and how to do it. So your company is sort of needs to be not only at the forefront of creating a great product with obviously, well, like what's the word, with great materials and all the research that you do to make sure that it's sustainable and all the parts of the process are ethical, but also ways that other companies can start changing their own companies. And basically the objective, I think, is to change the fashion industry, and that
For sure.
can spill over and affect many other industries, because I mean, there's nobody out there that doesn't wear clothes, right? I mean, we're all
Absolutely.
part of the fashion industry ultimately, right? So I want to give you, rather than throwing a question out there, just based because that sort of occurred to me that way, can you comment on what I said?
Yeah, for sure. I look at this, and some people would say this is being slightly dramatic, but I look at it in the same way that some people maybe don't know this, but Volvo invented the 3-point seatbelt, and they, instead of patenting the 3-point seatbelt, they gave it to every car company in the world. They said, hey, we think that this is a seatbelt that's actually going to save lives, because that was a big issue for a long time. Car accidents, people were dying in almost every accident. And they said, hey, here you go. To a lot of our the dissatisfaction of potential investors, especially institutional investors, I want to do the exact same thing with our sizing system. I want to do the exact same thing with our model. If I go into a Zara a year from now and I see my sizing system in Zara, I know that I've done something right. And I don't believe that we need to gatekeep our solutions for the name of profit. I think what we need to ultimately do is rewrite the entire industry, because ultimately I don't see sustainable clothing companies as competition. I see them as teammates and a larger issue. There's more than enough market share for everybody. They're, like you're saying, everybody wears clothes. I am not going to lose sleep if tomorrow another company pops up and makes jeans with good pockets, functionality, and sustainability. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. There is enough legs out there in the world for everybody. So to comment on that point, I think that ultimately what we need to do, and it's part of the reason that we ended up doing crowdsourced investment rather than just going through angel networks or straight to VC, because that's actually far more of what I'm used to doing, is going to VC or angel investors or tapping my network. We went with the average consumer and said, hey, if you want to invest in us. We're not going to make our margins the best as possible. I would rather sell 10,000 pairs at $50 than sell 1,000 pairs at $200. I don't care. I want to get more of them out into the world, because every pair of our jeans out there is one less of the conventional environmental destroying one. So, to wrap it up in summary, I think ultimately business is shifting in that regard. And I would love to be at the forefront of leading that new generation of business into saying, look, you don't need to patent everything through the roof to make it all about profit. There are some ideas worth sharing. And to me, we've stumbled on many of them. And I would love to be able to share them with companies to come.
I think you make a great point in that we don't need to gatekeep things, especially with social media today. I mean, your TikTok account, I think, speaks for itself, right? We all know you're the pocket guy. And so there's no question, maybe about 50 years ago, that was a little bit more difficult, but gatekeeping this information doesn't do the world a service, and it doesn't do your company a service in some regard. And so I think that's a really great point. And what I love too, is that you're kind of crowdsourcing away through investments. And for those of you who are not sure what any of that means, angel investors or venture capitalists, which is VC, these are people that are literally rather wealthy, or they have their own businesses, or they just have cash sitting by, and they will give a company or startup like here with Kristian money to be an investor, which means that they must have a return on that investment. That is their priority usually, and that is what they're looking for. But you're going crowdsourcing, like you're literally talking to people on TikTok and you're saying, hey, do you want to invest in our company to get us started through our first round or second round? And so I went to your investment site on your website. If you go to slowjeans.co, there's an area where it says, hey, check out our investment area. And you have a pitch deck in there, which is basically a few slides that says, hey, this is our company, this is what we're doing, here are our numbers. And I'm not going to lie, it was pretty freaking impressive. It's like, this is not his first time. And so I was like, this is great. This is great. So if you guys are listening or watching and you're going, hey, I really want to learn more about this investment opportunity with the revelation of pockets, go and check that out. It's pretty fantastic. And you can make your decision if you would like to invest. What I did see in there a couple of days ago is that you're almost to your goal, which means that it's working. So tell us a little bit about how people can get involved with this investment and what that means.
What was really interesting for me was, normally when we're doing a pitch deck, it's super, super in-depth, exactly like you're saying, for these different people who they have a portfolio of 150 companies. They want in-depth risk analysis and they want 5-year roadmaps. And so it was actually more of a challenge for me this time to say, hey, I need to make a pitch deck that speaks to someone who this might be their first investment. And that's been so cool, is seeing we have dozens of people that are saying to me, this is my first time investing in anything. And I absolutely love that. And so what we've tried to do with we're on a platform called the WeFunder, and WeFunder works a lot like Kickstarter, but rather than just going on a Kickstarter and saying, hey, I want that pair of jeans, I'll wait 3 or 4 months to get that pair of jeans. Here's $100, send me the jeans when they're ready. You're coming on and you're buying a very small piece of our company. You're basically coming in and you're buying shares of a startup. It's high risk, high reward. If we make it big, you're going to make good money. If we fall flat, you're going to lose your money. And so that's really what we've tried to say to people is, hey, look, if you believe in what we're doing, come and check it out. Here's all of the reasons we think you should invest. If you want in, you can invest as little as $100. And, we set the $300,000 goal. A lot of people say, why $300,000? And the craziest part is that research and development is really expensive. And we wanted to make sure that what we were doing here, ultimately, we're trying to recreate the fashion industry. We're trying to create an entirely new sizing system, a new ordering system, basically working with materials that are very expensive to sample. We're trying to come up with a new distribution system to limit the amount of carbon. A lot of things, along with the fact that we have a very talented team, and I need to make sure that they can eat, because as much as we love views and follows, those don't pay the rent. And so ultimately what we've come out was just said, hey, this is what we need. This is what we think we can do. If you believe in what we do, is for as little as $100, you can come in and buy in. And we've had over 1,000 people invest so far. And we've created this community of people that just love everything about what we're doing. And they're the ones now that they're driving the conversation forward. They're saying, what about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And some of our best ideas so far have come from our investment community. And it's been a really, really powerful tool. And it's something that I wouldn't trade for the world, rather than, call up one of these, venture capital companies or call up an angel investor and say, hey, I need 300 grand. Sure, they could cut that check for us. But the power of these 1,000 individual opinions and 1,000 individual voices is, even though they're only risking, some of them $100, that's the craziest part of it all, is that that $100 is so important to the whole mix, because that's $100 closer to us establishing the antithesis of fast fashion. And so it's been a wild ride. I'm sorry if I didn't really answer the question there, kind of went around in a circle, but that's where we're at right now with WeFunder.
No, I think you did. And just to kind of clarify a little bit for our audience is that when you go to the investment page on his website, you will find the page to WeFunder and a couple of videos on there, which I would definitely say go and watch. But when it comes to your cap, which is at 300,000, or at least your goal, you're getting pretty close. You're at like 233,000 or somewhere in there. So if you all are listening, you're like, oh, I want to invest. You might want to go now, because we're getting to that threshold for sure. Getting to that threshold. For a lot of us viewers, at least on TikTok, and I'll move over to you, Demian, in a second. But for a lot of us viewers, especially women here on TikTok, I know my sister and I talk about you quite often, and we'll send each other videos of Kristian. We'll be like, oh my gosh, that he's investing. And she's like, oh my gosh, once I get my next paycheck, I'm totally going in, because it was more about the dream than it was about receiving the product. It's about our voting, like kind of how you're talking about the end consumer making a vote towards what they want. And this is definitely something we've been screaming for. I mean, I was telling Demian earlier, there's literally a joke about dresses having pockets. It's like, and there's a joke that's been created. There's definitely a want and there's a complaint. So you're definitely listening to the masses. And I think the crowdfunding idea of the investment side is also smart, and also a great way to incorporate everyone to be part of this movement that's happening. So I just kind of wanted to polish that together for our audience to know that you're being part of a movement. You're supporting something that's getting started, and you will hopefully very soon get those pockets.
A lot of the other podcasts that we've done have been with amazing organizations and nonprofits and so forth. And I want to sort of throw out there a little bit about the fact that literally, everybody needs money to live, and everybody spends that money on something, right? And every time we spend money, there's the common saying of that we're voting for what it is that we want, but it's not. It's whether we donate money or whether we buy something we believe in, or whether we give money to somebody. Like, you have a family member that you give a little bit of money for their birthday or whatever. So it's basically where we spend our money is an extension of our beliefs, and it's just like Anastasia was just saying, people believe in your company, and that's why you're seeing success with this. And but I wanted to ask one quick question, and this is because you mentioned earlier that, well, let me ask it this way, okay, because this is really interesting to me. So the success and the results that you've had through TikTok, through social media, and getting response, obviously that can be duplicated in many, many other types of things. It doesn't have to just be fashion. So have you can you share with us maybe some of the things that you're involved with right now that you're most excited about, in a way that you might be able to utilize some things that have come to you that are unexpected, something that you that maybe now you have in your hands that you didn't before, and what you think that you might be able to do with that?
Really, the reality is that I've been an activist for a long time, especially climate activist. And the thing that all activists need is a platform. And I've never really had a platform up until recently. And I've had all of these things I've really wanted to do. And I've had all of these dreams and these aspirations. And I've traveled all over the world to try and make them a reality. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the only way things happen nowadays is with influence. And unless you have the right following, and unless you have the right movement behind you, and you have the right people behind you, you could be doing some of the greatest things on earth, and it's unfortunate, but it could fall on deaf ears. And that's kind of what was happening to me for the last few years, especially around COVID. So many delays with our product launches over at Mountain that, like, every time we built up momentum, it was just crushed. And so I would post something and it just didn't go anywhere. And so really, for the first time ever, as a byproduct of this entire jeans project, I actually now have a voice to be able to say, hey, what do you think about this? And hey, I want to work on this. And I'm getting nonprofits that are reaching out to me and saying, hey, will you come and speak at this thing? Like, this sounds a lot like, something that you talked about on a podcast. I'm like, wow, you listen to that podcast? That's so cool. People are listening. And so really, as a byproduct of this whole movement, I've had the privilege now to really start doing what I've always wanted to do. And that's just try and fix the planet and just try and make as much impact as we possibly can. Because, like I've always said, I don't want to measure our company's success and how much money and how much revenue we make every quarter. I want to measure it in the impact that we've had on humans and on the planet. And I think really, as a result of everything, I'm at the first time in my life where I'm able to actually say, people are listening, and my voice actually can sway the opinions of people and companies and businesses and organizations. And that's been a really amazing change. And it's a privilege, and I am not taking it for granted. And with great power comes great responsibility. And I've loved every second of it.
I think that's a great statement that I think a lot of people can resonate, especially if they're on platforms like TikTok. It can be a toxic place for sure, but it can also be such a wonderful place too. It's not just, a bunch of dancing girls that are 12. It's got people like Kristian. So, that's a great segue to ask, when it comes to our audience who's listening or watching, and they just got introduced to you, what's the best place for them to either follow you or to be part of this journey?
Come and join our TikTok community. I'm sure you'll probably find a link somewhere. If not, I'm Kristian from Mountain. That's MNTN. That's my username, Kristian from Mountain. Come and join us on TikTok. Everything is there. I think you get a pretty good idea. The reason I really like TikTok as a medium is it's all video. And so, you're not reading my Instagram post and trying to figure out what my voice is like and what we're coming across as. You can hop right into a TikTok video and you can see our vibe and you can feel our community and you can see our comment sections. I spend hours every day trying to answer comments to try and make sure that everyone knows I'm listening. I read every comment, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's something that's really important to me. So TikTok is probably the best way to hop into our community right away.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for
Great.
being on our podcast, Kristian. We really appreciate you and your movement. And for those of you who are listening, do go to his TikTok account. You will find a link below in the description, or you can find it on the podcast website. But hey, go ahead and go to Slø Jeans, SLO jeans.co, and check out what's going on that platform with them. So thank you so much for Kristian for being with us with Slø Jeans. We are so excited for you, and we're rooting for you all the way.
Thanks very much for the support, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Good Viral podcast and being part of the conversation. If you are inspired by this episode, go to our website at goodviral.org, where you can find resources and listings from the episode to continue good efforts.
Like, comment, and share this episode to any or all of your social media channels. It's really easy to take a small action, and maybe you'll inspire a big result.
When good goes viral, the world gets better.